Great horror films have a way of instilling dread in us by preying on fears that range from those of a collective society all the way down to the fears unique to our own individual selves. The fear of losing control of our bodies and minds to something evil or unknown is a fear that can stem through every level of humanity. And with this, we get to Weapons, Zach Cregger's new horror mystery that taps right into that fear. But when it comes to imaginative and outlandish horror stories, things could easily go into the realm of feeling like it's filled with movie magic.
He's here, isn't he?
And convenient setups for jump scares. And never fully suspend our disbelief. But something made Weapons stand out. I felt genuinely immersed and unnerved by it, both from a story and character standpoint and a sensory standpoint. From having loved Cregger's first film, Barbarian, to now Weapons, I'm starting to feel that there's an extra level of intimacy and proximity between the audience and his films that I haven't felt from a movie in a long time. And I want to break down the ways in which Weapons storytelling fully immerses us and some of the techniques Cregger employs to make his world feel actually believable and real to us. And to showcase his film's techniques, I'm also going to use two other iconic horror films as comparison, The Conjuring and Get Out, to highlight how the different elements affect our experiences. But before all that, big spoiler warnings for all three films. Now, a little context. The film follows the peculiar aftermath of a mass disappearance tragedy that struck through a suburban town. One night, 17 third graders from Justine Gandy's third grade class mysteriously vanishes after every one of them got up in the middle of the night and ran out of their homes into the darkness. And the film shows this aftermath through a non-linear story structure. We get to see these events through contained chapters, with each chapter following a different character's point of view through these days. This showcases my first point, which is how much importance Cregger put to character building. But what's so special about this structure that it can do that? Cregger, by telling the story in this way, has given himself a great framework to fully develop each character. As we see each character's individual experiences separated from the others, the camera work and the narrative intentionally does not break off into anything the characters themselves can't experience. When we follow Justine's perspective at the conference in front of all the parents of the disappeared children, the camera stays with her fearful expression as a horde of angry parents berate her.
I want to hear from Justine Gandy. She's here. I want to know exactly what she was doing in there.
The instinct here would be to cut to the parents to show us more information about the scene. However, we don't get that here. The camera only follows her perspective, forcing us to notice the nuances on her face and stay with our character.
I know, it's not...
Be locked up until she tells us what happened.
As she continuously gets denied the space to express her own feelings. This is a vastly different experience than if we were to have perspectives shift to multiple characters at the same time.
Here and none of us saw it coming.
If that was the case, then Archer could have easily been seen as the antagonist, while Justine as the protagonist. However, the themes of the story deal with the complexities of collective trauma. Everyone affected is a victim. Instead, Cregger shows these two perspectives 30 minutes apart from each other, giving us enough time to acclimate ourselves to the new character. Therefore, this structure highlights everyone in their own nuanced journeys as protagonists of their own lives, rather than creating one singular biased view of the situation. When she goes to the liquor store, we get a Steadicam shot that is locked onto her while her surroundings are faded into a blur. We get extreme intimacy and insight into these characters' nuanced mental states, together experiencing the tunnel vision that is this mystery. The film isn't eager to answer its questions immediately after asking them. What Cregger does here is masterfully controlling the flow of information. We are kept in the dark just enough, along with these characters, heightening the suspense because we don't truly know the extent of the danger these characters in. It allows our minds to wander into the dark corners first, until pieces from other people's perspectives are pieced together. Cregger invites us to try our hardest to solve this mystery alongside our characters, because that's the immersive experience that he's trying to build. Much like a Japanese woodblock printing, multiple layers containing different parts of a whole are put together, one by one, and only once after they're all laid down together do we see the entire picture. Only once we laid out each character's own experiences of these few days do we start to have an inkling of what's actually happening. On the contrary, horror films told chronologically often need to set up multiple characters and give so much information at the same time. And with this omniscient perspective chosen, things could easily slip into information dump, where we get scenes in which their whole purpose is to give enough information to propel the plot forward. Here, exposition takes forefront and character takes a backseat. We often don't truly sit with the characters for long enough to really let us sink into their nuances, because they're just devices for the plot. Which is fine in most cases, but in order to really get the audiences to feel what our characters are feeling on a personal basis, we need to develop them fully, and like weapons, sit with their confusion,
Alright, I fucked up.
their anger, their flaws, and their fears, so that whatever happens to them, we're already emotionally attached. But this doesn't mean chronologically told films can't also use perspective to its advantage. In Get Out, Jordan Peele keeps our perspective glued onto our lead, Chris, as we experience the Armitage's weird family dynamic firsthand as he does. We do not break from his subjective point of view for most of the film, letting the mystery of everything build up behind those closed doors and behind the minds of the others.
Sink into the floor.
Wait.
Sink.
Our unease grows further with nowhere to release because we can't point out obviously what's really happening, whether something really is horribly going wrong, or maybe that we're just paranoid. The only time the perspective shifts is when we get to learn the singular most important piece of information that changes the entire trajectory of the film. Peele knows this and uses the technique sparingly to plant the bomb under our seats to its greatest effect.
Tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. But the whole emotion of the audience is totally different because you've given them that information. Now the conversation about baseball becomes very vital because they're saying to you, don't be ridiculous, stop talking about baseball, there's a bomb under there. You've got the audience working.
In many ways, Weapon's narrative framing not only allows for meticulous control of information, but also allows for much heightened suspense because of the amount of time bombs he can set, creating a much more powerful retelling of the story. Another way Cregger immerses us into Weapon's world is his use of our senses, by utilizing textures of real life to pull us in. Now a little tangent here. Mortal Kombat has some gruesome fatalities, and they're meant to show us the extremes of a painful death, pain that we're seeing and supposed to feel ourselves. But aside from some of them, most of this and this don't really give me the same visceral feeling as, let's say, this.
Oh my god!
Or this. I came to the realization that it's probably because most people, including me, fortunately, have never had their skulls bashed in or had their spine eviscerated.
I broke my back, spinal.
We don't know what that feels like, we can't recall anything, but we sure do know what hair feels like and what the sharp sting from a prick on a branch. We can access those memories because they are tactile and actually things most of us have experienced in real life. The sound design roots itself in realism, or even hyper-realism.
That all free will has been lost.
To heighten these normal sounds that we can find in real life, and the crack from the branch could symbolize, in a way, the breaking of his psyche. Despite all the supernatural elements that surround these objects that Gladys brings with her, at the core these are just, in fact, common things that Gladys uses to spread her terror. In the scenes where we see Alex being forced to feed his possessed parents soup from a can, the sharp scraping of the can lid and the wet dripping sounds of the soup work as physical and textural reminders of the cruelty that we're experiencing. Trying to hide his fears in the face of pure evil as his parents deteriorate and suffer right in front of him. There's a simplicity in Cregger's approach to these scenes. His attention to small details like this brings his world to life in a way that's not often seen. Similar to the famous wire scene from The Audition, a Japanese horror icon, where no sounds are present in the scene other than the crisp grinding sound of the wire saw against the unseen foot, and the victim's groaning. The simplicity focuses all of our attention onto the sound and its implications, without trying so hard to shove it in our faces, letting our minds truly run wild and burning that sound in our minds. I want to bring up this point with The Conjuring. While watching this film, it overwhelmed me. All of the sounds it had certainly added to the atmosphere, but overall it just overwhelmed me. It's as if there's an attempt to bombard us with as much sound as possible, trying to be powerful. The music's swelling, there's sound effects banging all the time. Nothing here is empty, yet we don't really feel an intimate, visceral level. And there might be a reason for this, because when the main horror of the film centers around an unseen source, we get airy whooshes, conveyed through sweeping hand gestures and directed shouting. I have to give credit to this film because it does have a really powerful soundscape, with the music and the sound effects being beautifully done. But just by the nature of the story, there's a physical disconnect here between the characters and the world that they're interacting with. There's a lot of special effects movie magic here. It's quite hard to use grounded real elements to create a soundscape. Rather, the atmosphere is created artificially in post. But deep down, we know instinctively when filming these things, it probably sounded like this. It's not that horror films shouldn't sound design.
It's not always like this, Mark.
Sound design is vital for any film, don't get me wrong. But it's important to keep in mind as sometimes isolating or taking away sounds can be much more effective at highlighting it than adding more sounds. All we really needed was a little. Get Out uses textures really nicely. The objects we interact with throughout the film have a weight and a realism to them, so that when things inevitably go into the realm of fiction, we feel it not only emotionally, but physically. All three of these films deal with themes of losing control of ourselves to an outside entity seeking to cause harm. But what Weapons has is Cregger's inseparable touch to the film. The emotions of losing someone close to him recently, and the experience of growing up in a household with alcoholism.
But it's examining the dynamic of children with parents who are alcoholics, which is my childhood. And the idea of a foreign entity entering a household and inverting the dynamic between a child and the parents, the child feeding the parents soup and, being the caretaker and that. It's much more about my own autobiographical stuff than looking outward. It's a looking inward movie.
Whether we've personally dealt with these things or not, we can tell when a film feels more real. The possession that occurs in the film becomes more than just an evil witch taking over people's bodies. Cregger personifies the parasitic relationship an addiction can have, externalizing its psychological and destabilizing impact to the people of this town. One person's appearance sends this entire town into frenzy. A quite literal but genius approach in portraying this metaphor of addiction.
Themselves, I can make them hurt each other. I can make them eat each other if I want to.
Most of the film's characters also deal with some sort of addiction, which are also placed at the core of each character's development.
Will has been lost.
You fucked him? No, I didn't fuck him.
All of this plays out the idea that addiction is not simply an individual's own dealing, but it has negative long-term impacts on the entire community that surrounds that addiction. In Get Out, Jordan Peele wrote a story that is deeply personal to him about his own experience as a black man in a predominantly white space.
Black is in fashion.
And the anxiety that creates, knowing deep down that many of them do not see beyond his blackness.
If you really pushed your body, be a fucking beast.
He originally was not under the impression that he would be directing it, but after realizing that this is his personal story.
And someone's gonna have to direct this thing. Brian, it was not even in my mind that I would direct. After all these years, I thought, why would anyone let me direct something for my first time direct? That stigma, I'm a first time director.
Yeah.
I start writing this, that experience of being black in a white space and feeling your blackness radiate in everybody's fucking minds, that feeling. And then I realized, wait, a white director can't do this. Ryan Coogler doesn't exist to me yet. So who's gonna do? Who can pull this off? I'm the only person that can pull this off.
And even though The Conjuring wasn't a bad film, the spectacle takes priority here. The focus of the film was the investigation and the family's haunting experience. Viewing what crazy things this demonic spirit could do to a family. There definitely is a place for this, and it's really fun when done right, as you can see. But it does get quite old quite quickly, as it has for me. Even though the Conjuring series are based on true stories, technically, these are really just dramatized approximations of the events that went down, whether we believe them or not. And these were not made with the personal nuances that the other two films has. Weapons is a film that stood out to me because spectacle was not its focus. The focus was its characters. Their stories extend beyond the scopes of this film. They are very real characters with very real problems. And in the real world, troubles like this don't simply get resolved when the credits roll, just like how Weapons ends as well. The shattering effects of Gladys's possessions left a deep scar on the community, multiple deaths, and many of the children left in a tranced state for the rest of their lives, only a few of them just regaining their ability to talk. It speaks to the long-lasting effects that traumatic events like this could have on a collective. Even once the problems at hand are resolved, psychological and long-term effects don't go away that fast, leaving a permanent damage on everyone. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that stories made with human connections, created through deep personal experiences, do not alienate by being too specific. Rather, the specificity actually builds a world that feels understood and real. Stories created with broad strokes, more often than not, just makes movies that feel like a distant recollection or a caricature of real life, an enclosed ecosystem that ends when the movie ends, rather than the dynamic, breathing, and changing world that lingers with us long after the film is over. Thanks for watching this analysis of what makes Weapons feel real. If you enjoyed this deep dive, remember to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I really like this film, and I just love imaginative horrors in general. They're so much fun. And I'd rather see a film try and not succeed than not try at all. So to see a film that does something different and really succeeds is something really special. And if you guys have any recommendations, you can leave it in the comments and I'll get to responding. Thank you again, and hope to see y'all in the next video. Bye bye.